Therapy session is what we call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's great. I mean, moments of reflection are wonderful, right? Because you get to like kind of think about where you are and what you're doing and what your story is. And you don't often have that necessarily unless you're going home and talking about that kind of thing. But like you get to be reflective. That's great. Yeah. That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. There's several podcasts out there, I guess, in this area that are more like building science related. I don't know if you know Michael or Matt Reisinger.
Yeah.
He's got kind of a show podcast.
That guy's like the Bob Villa of football.
Yeah.
He's everywhere always. Yeah. Thanks, man.
But we wanted something that was kind of more about the individual, like your story, your journey, and then, and it teases into architecture, and it'll tease into construction and development and all that. So
cool, awesome, that's great. Yeah, I was toying around with a podcast idea. Jordan kind of inspired it, my business partner.
Okay,
and I really wanted to have like warm, easy conversations with people that I've known in Austin for a long time. It would be about affordability, but like it would a lot, really be about like specific projects. Right? Where did you kind of like, meet affordability in your project and telling that storyline and having people that I've known forever, in this town that do it in different ways. Like, talking to Aaron Franklin, like, what do you do about affordability with your staff?
Yeah.
I've known that guy forever, since way before he was Franklin Barbecue. Different individuals, Andy Brown, who's Travis County judge. I've known him forever, like went to college with him, So just like having these stories. So I think easy, natural conversations are really good.
Well, that's it.
Really appealing rather than like formalized, kind of very measured, conversations where you're really trying to get somewhere on it. I think it's less appealing, less natural, less like you don't want to listen to that as much. But yeah. Cool.
I was at a meeting, a group meeting yesterday. I'm on this committee, and they're talking about it's an interesting topic because I get so insular in terms of what affordability means. And we've been talking about our staff, like it's hard to staff because salaries increase because our living has increased and so on and so on. And so what I didn't realize, and we've known that, but what I didn't realize is how big this problem is, right? Because given Tesla and the medical center and all these billion-dollar projects, there's 5 projects that they were talking about in Austin alone that will happen regardless of this economy, that will happen regardless of the election, that will happen regardless of anything. These trains are moving.
Yeah.
And that's probably, I don't know, these numbers are not accurate, but it's in the realm of like a $10 billion over the next 5 years. That's happening.
Yeah.
And the problem is that what will crush Austin is when these projects happen, if we cannot provide labor for these jobs, like we can't provide labor right now. We're 15,000 workers short of what our industry needs. And each year we've got to add 10,000 workers to it.
Yeah.
And so if we can't provide labor, then the word's going to get out. And there's this other semiconductor thing that's coming to Austin that is like, there's 5 places in the world, and Austin will be one of those. And it's like, all right, well, that'll crush Austin. Because word will get out that we can't support our industry, much less living. Right. So it's like a dominoing.
So much of that is like, code and regulation, because if you look at other cities in Texas that are growing, and yes, you're right. Like Austin is on the forefront, right? It has so much going for itself in terms of projects and in terms of tech and all of that. But, Houston doesn't have the housing ratio issue that Austin has. And you go around in Houston and it looks like the neighborhood you live in, man.
Yeah.
It looks like Cuernavaca.
Yeah.
It's like, it's more permissive of different building types, and less restrictive on what kind of housing you create. And that has an effect on how much housing you can kind of deliver to your city. And you need those housing options. That's where missing middle has gotten pretty popular, right? It's like now code for, so many people into affordability and going back in time and creating housing that wedges itself into big cities in different shapes and forms. And you can't do missing middle housing.
Yeah.
So you can't even do that kind of thing in Austin with such an antiquated code.
Yeah.
And so that's our biggest hang up, our ability to create housing as our city grows, as the need for staff in all of these industries, architecture, tech, wherever it is, it grows. Where are they going to live in Austin?
Yeah.
And if you can't make it, if you can't deliver it, and you can't get creative about creating housing, then, it's hard to find spots in Central Austin to provide for these staff members. And so that becomes a bottleneck. I mean, anywhere we go eat, if we go and grab lunch after this, and we head over to any spot on Lamar over here, none of these guys live in Austin.
Yeah.
They don't live in Austin. You can ask them. I mean, I make it a habit every once in a while. It's like, where do you live? What do you nearby? What's the deal? Unless you're near the campus or a campus where there are students.
Yeah.
Nobody lives here.
Yeah.
They don't live in Austin.
Yeah.
They commute. So yeah, totally.
Well, how did you get involved in this, and how did you get so passionate about it?
Oh, so it was not something that I saw coming, actually.
Okay.
I had, as Mark knows, because Mark and I have a history together, this guy, he saw my 5-year age, just starting my first design build business. We worked on a project in East Austin. Mark was still kind of young in your career, right?
Yeah, I just moved here.
Yeah, you just moved here.
Yeah.
And I had 2008 hit, the recession hit, and my boss at the time, I was a carpenter. He, Branson Fustus over at Pilgrim Building, he recognized that I had a lot of ideas about design, build. And so the recession hit and he said, yeah, go out and do them. Like, be a spark, do something. Yeah. So I was doing lots of odd jobs, and then I got a job as a general contractor working on this house in East Austin. Mark was doing some drawings for it, some permit drawings, and I ended up working for Raymond for like 2 years. He was super creative dude.
I can't even remember how I got introduced to that. I have no idea how I got connected to.
Was it Joshua Bingaman?
Maybe. I was trying to remember.
Do you know that? Do you know Joshua? You know Joshua, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I got to know Raymond. So anyways, I was in general contracting all of a sudden. And then I had small group of carpenters working for me, one of them being Aaron Franklin. Okay. So that ties that story together. Because he was
he out there when?
Oh yeah, he was out there, and he had dreams of like starting a food truck at the time. And
what time was this? Like, what year was this?
This was 2000 or
was that 8?
2008? Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, 2009. 2009. Yep. And I remember going out to lunch with Aaron, and he was helping me with some carpentry. And we went out to lunch, and he had so much to say about the sandwich he was eating. And I remember noting to myself, you've got some insight here. You really are into food, aren't you? Like this is a thing for you. And then like a year later, he had his food truck on 38th Street and I-35, and then he had a line out the door ever since. So it was those days and general contracting, getting my first gig, liking that. That was the only gig that I had where I had a super creative, flexible client who was just kind of,
all right,
let's try this out today. Let's do this. And so we experimented a lot. After that, after Raymond's job, I was doing I guess this is the transition. I was working with a lot of first-time homeowners, and our budget was their equity in their house. And it was, can we get 500 extra square feet and improve the value of your home? Can we renovate your house? What can we do? And it would always be, here's our dream list. This is what we want to do. This is what we can do because your house is 40 years old and you have to make all these other updates in your house. Here are our limitations. And so I would do turnkey. I was, I would do the design work, do the permitting, and then eventually do the general contracting. So when I met my current business partners for Industry ATX, doing affordable housing and trying to provide that kind of work, I felt like I was kind of already in there. I was sustaining, Austinites that were in Central Austin that needed to grab more value in their home. And I feel like I was already working with those people in that way. So when we started talking about affordable housing and how to meet that market and how to solve that problem, I feel like I was already kind of in that mindset. And also being a musician, I just, I have a lot of friends in the service industry, in the music industry, in Austin, in live music, and just very, very acutely aware of, their needs.
Yeah.
And, being there myself at, a certain point in my life too, just knowing what that was like.
Yeah.
How to be like, part of the music capital, but yet not have the resources you need to thrive and to exist.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, one of the kind of overlapping, I would say, just mindsets of myself and, the two others that I work with is that we're deeply invested into music in Austin.
Yeah.
And so that became a common thread as well.
Is that how you met them?
Kind of,
How
yeah.
did you run into?
Yeah, Jordan was, so I was competing for a large grant on the music scene. There's this amazing organization called Black Fret that is now Sonic Guild.
Oh.
I think they transitioned their name.
Just recently?
Yeah, in the last couple of years. It was Black Fret at the time. But they find musical talent in Austin, and they award 20 artists, songwriters, and or bands a grant of like, I think it's $20,000, maybe it's upwards of that now, $25,000 after a year of having them perform for their organization and in public. So I was inside that program in my with Paladuro, which is my band or my singer-songwriter moniker, and I was competing, and Jordan was on the inside the organization, so he was one of the members, and so I had no idea that we were interfacing in that way, but yeah, that was happening, and then so there was a passion for music, and then we were introduced to our first project, the property for it in South Austin, the Industry Soma project, and we kind of partnered on that land, not knowing exactly what we were going to do with it, but we started talking about workforce housing, affordable housing, and that kind of stuck with us. Yeah.
I have a question for you, and this is going to be outside of where we're going with this conversation, but I think it's relevant now that I just heard what you just said. How do you think about, for both you guys actually, because you've been around Austin a long time now, how do you think about the direction Austin's going in when at the same time you've got all this money and people and all these new cultural, aspects coming in, but at the same time it's getting more difficult for the people that I think really made the soul of Austin, the artists, the musicians, the creators, the makers, can't afford to stay here, kind of to where we started the conversation. And those folks are moving out. So like, how do you see that transition in Austin? Because Austin, in my experience, and I've traveled all over the country, it's one of those special places that has a soul to it.
Yeah.
and it seems like that's being compromised a little bit now.
Definitely.
Hold on, let me interject before Mark takes the first one. Where are you from?
I was born here.
You were born in Austin?
But I was raised in Dallas.
But you were raised in Dallas.
But I was born here, raised in Dallas, came back and went to school here, went back to Dallas, and then came back in 2012.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. So you know Austin.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
I've been here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I've always had that question in the back of my head, so I got it out, but I'm gonna let Mark
go.
take it.
Yeah. Well, my opinion is we're not doing anything about it. Right. And it's about to sail. And so the hard truth is the creatives they don't have a place.
Yeah.
And the creatives are my gut is, and I don't know for sure, is that they're leaving.
Yeah.
And the music capital, the art, everything that was the backbone, like this free nature, it's gone, it's leaving.
Yeah.
Like it's got this little small tether because that's what Austin was.
Yeah.
But Austin is not that anymore. Right. We're a tech company. I mean, we're a tech city and we've got gobs and gobs of money, but that creative industry is not really relevant anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And we hold on to this bubble that we used to live in, and it's not there.
Yeah.
And we may have had the opportunity to change that, and it really starts with the city and providing that infrastructure and really believing in it and stabilizing it and allowing those folks, or that were and are myself and probably Michael to some degree, that opportunity to find those roots internal of Austin, like in the city limits, but they didn't. We couldn't find that lever to maintain whatever that is. Like you could look at multiple cities all throughout the world that have provided opportunity for artists to stay within the city realm, but we didn't do it.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, right? Because it is lost, and it's something that we're holding on to as an idea, but it's not. It's really not here.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
I mean, that's hard truth.
So no, I think you have to say what you said, and I think that there is a lot of truth in that. I'm gonna take this opportunity to add the positive side to it.
There is a there are artists and there are opportunities, but man, it's just like they're suffering to make it work.
I think what's so appealing about Austin is kind of something that you introed this question with, which is historically we have a personality, right? We're not like some new city that's being
We have an identity.
Yeah, we're not, we're not being tagged with like a slogan that's not true and, trying to grow that advertisement for the city. We have an identity, and we've always had it. And luckily, I think that it helps us through really hard times. I think that, because our identity is not just music, and a little bit film and the university and the tech industry and the capital, I think that sustains us through really hard times. I think we're lucky as architects, builders, planners, developers to be able to go through those hard times and sustain ourselves. But as Mark was saying, we see other cities that have this same affordability issue, right? And the ship has completely sailed. Like, what are you going to do, San Francisco?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you going to do? There's no going backwards.
Yeah.
You're done, man.
Yeah.
New York, you're done.
Yeah.
Are we marching towards something similar?
Okay, so here's my slice of faith and hope.
Well, and you have to have hope and faith, right? Because this is the world that we're working in. That's the avenue that we're trying to carve out because there's opportunity.
Sure. Yeah.
So we had this big whack at rewriting the land development code several years ago, and actually that's where we got stuck. Our first affordable project the one that we're all now working on together in South Austin, we stalled a little bit on that, thinking, okay, if this new rewrite on the land development code in Austin changes, that could be big for affordability over here. So let's just pump the brakes and wait for that to happen. Okay, it didn't happen. What do we know about that? Like, this is the problem. This is really the problem. We get into these issues of changing our ability to provide affordable housing. And what happens is, every single time, to the city's credit, and I am going to give them a fist bump right now. They stick their neck out there and they try to endorse either a new land development code rewrite, new programming inside of the current code to allow for more affordable development. And every single time they get sued.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Who would have thought one lawsuit would just screeching halt?
Screeching halt.
Yeah.
So you got to ask yourself, in Austin, who the hell's bringing this lawsuit every single time? Well, I'm not going to just point the hard finger right now, but you can look this stuff up.
Yeah.
It happens every damn time. And so we get these windows where it's like, boom, here's our opportunity, And I want to be really clear about this. These aren't just opportunities where the sky's open and you can do anything you want. And they're not like that. I think that the opportunities that could be created, that the city has tried to create, much with our backing and a lot of backing of the affordable kind of community and network of architects and builders. And, it's an opportunity for us to work in partnership with the city and say, hey, we're doing the planning side of this. This is how it works. This is how much it costs. These are our constraints. These are, it's an opportunity really to dive into this kind of development, keeping the affordable community, the service community, the workforce housing community, supportive housing community, and really show city officials who also want to be supportive of this. This is how it works. These are our constraints. It's compatibility. It's impervious coverage. It's all these things, all inside of this budget. These are our funding options. It's so complicated that we really need that opportunity to be good partners with the city of Austin and with other people that want to endorse and help this process move forward, and show them what the obstacles are so that we can move it forward. But we can't get past these issues. We have a very, very pro council right now that's ready to do all kinds of things.
But they're taking baby steps in order to get around the lawsuit.
And those lawsuits are slowing everything down. So they're saying, well, we can't tackle this issue because we know it's going to come up in a lawsuit. We know it's coming next. So my question is, we've seen cities come and go where the ship has sailed. We have an opportunity right now. And we have a very proactive and supportive city to create this kind of housing, this affordable housing that we need at all different levels. And then we have this gigantic, wealthy opposition that is a problem, and they need to step out of the way and let people decide on how we navigate our course going forward.
What's the motivation you think behind that? I mean, what are they trying to stop? What are they trying to suppress? Is it property values? Is it what's the motivation to not do more of this affordability? without pointing the finger at anybody, but what do you think the motivation is?
What I think is so there's a fear of what affordability means. I think sometimes there's a negligence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have to, when we talk about affordability, I think this almost should be said every single conversation, maybe like at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. But like affordability means a lot of things. Affordability means, let's just start at the highest group. It means that if you make 120% of the median family income in Austin, you can't afford to buy a home.
Yeah.
120%.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not talking about the waiter at, the restaurant over across the street over here on Lamar. We're talking really about, 2 school teachers.
Yeah.
At that point, we're talking about a young professional, decent tech job,
mm-hmm.
just gets out of college. 120%. That's the high, let's just call that the highest level of affordability. And then you get into the mid-range, 80%. Okay. That's a household making $80,000 to $90,000 a year. Okay. So, that's a household. So that could be 2 workers in that household.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then we go down to, I think where this gets scary for some people is when you start talking about supportive housing for the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about, foster families, foster children, you get into these deeper networks of affordability. Okay. And people get scared where that's going to be located.
Mm.
I mean, you drive in West Austin. Do you see any affordable housing?
Mm-mm.
You don't. One of the most successful communities, really, solved a chunk of affordable housing issues in Austin is Community First, and amazing project.
Yeah.
Okay, just super inspiring. They found a way, very determined.
They're doing it. Yeah.
They're doing it, got out there, got people involved. Amazing. It's also, nobody sees it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's out there on a leaf, on the river, way out there. No one sees it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, probably smart, not going to ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
So I think that the bottleneck is like, where when you have all these potential layers of affordability, it can start at 120, it can dip all the way down to 30, 40, 50%, whatever it is. There's a fear of where does it go?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it happen? Can it happen in my neighborhood? Can it happen down the street? What does that do to my property values?
Mm-hmm.
If it exists there. And so the concern is financial.
Yeah.
I just think that this is probably a product of people's financial security and wanting to protect it at all costs. And, if they're told it is something and it goes in a certain place, maybe. But when you leave that open to, the planners of affordability in the city, it could go anywhere. There's a deep fear of it and what it means. And I think people should talk about it as much as possible because it can mean, it can mean a 30% median family income resident of Austin. It can mean 80%. It can mean 120%. And there are different levels of this.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was at a party for a friend of mine, filmmaker, and his wife. They're both filmmakers. They're so rad. We lost them. They moved to some rural area of North Carolina because they couldn't afford Austin. And I was at the going away party at another Austin gym, Don's Depot. Can we landmark that place?
Yeah, I know.
Please, for the love of God, can we make sure that that place doesn't ever go anywhere? I want to go there for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of theirs at the party, and they're like, "Yeah, it's like they live in my old neighborhood, which is University Hills, like east of, a little bit northeast of 51st Street in Berkman." And they were complaining about some project that was happening in their neighborhood. They're like, we walk every morning. There's apartment complex. All of a sudden, it's like, well, what's in it? And they're like, I don't know. I was like, you should find out. So they're like, you live by the hospital. Like there might be 10, 20, 30% affordability in there. Like that might be housing for nurses or staff at the hospital or people that work over near Mueller. Like, be interested.
Yeah.
Like, ask. I mean, we do this for a living, so of course we're interested.
Yeah.
Right? This is how we spend our days. But there's a mindset that needs to be kind of, more invested in this. And I think that we can all agree. If you own a house, or you're living in a city like Austin, this should be just part of your interest. Like, you've got an investment in where you live. So, be active, be a part of it, and don't be fearful. That's what I would say is, it's all those things all together.
I would say though that Austin seems like a curious city in that realm, right? I would imagine, my opinion is that we are interested as a city. Now, whether or not you sit on one side of a fence or another, and whether or not you dig in to get the real truth about the information, that's the the drop off, perhaps. But it seems like what we do in terms of what we build and how we build and where we build is an ongoing conversation with the city in general.
I would agree with you on professionals.
Yeah.
I remember when I was working for Branson, we had kind of like a bumper sticker that said on our toolbox, it said, "Developers go to hell."
Yeah.
And it was just, we were a young group of carpenters or whatever. And that was just kind of the consensus. It was like, and here we are building, $10 million houses that get torn down in 5 years. So, or, what are we doing? That's not great. Right. So I think that, I do think that the mindset has changed a lot. When I hang out with my architect buddies and we talk about it, people are seriously pro development, pro housing, pro affordable housing. It has changed. I can remember at a time where it was not that way. I mean, we do have to see the ability to create housing as a good thing in the city. We have to see that as a good thing. And then, once we kind of get into more nuanced areas of affordability, I think that that's changed. I think that that's changed. I can't say whether or not I really think that the average non-real estate architect, planning, industry person I cannot say that they're necessarily invested or knowledgeable about it. I can't say that. I feel like I have these conversations with my friends all the time, and I'm kind of introducing a lot of things to them.
Yeah. Maybe our neighborhood groups are more vested, but those neighborhoods, typically it's 15 folks out of the entire neighborhood that will have a voice. But
those groups for sure. Yeah. I mean, they're volunteering their time to protect the livelihood of their neighborhood and what they think you're right. I mean,
Yes,
for
they do.
sure. I mean, they're in it. But I feel like platforms like this are really great. It's like where do you start? How do you get your how do you learn about different topics? I mean, I think podcasts like this, the Chronicle's been doing a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel like I pick up the Chronicle every week and there's another couple of articles. I'm like, this is good. This is really good.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe, there's a few outlets online that are really good. I think there's a couple of voices like Jack Craver. He's done a good job. And so, yeah, I think that there are definitely outlets for it. I think it's in many ways kind of exciting / terrifying to watch as things develop. So I think there's so much going on that if we can rope people in, man, there's a lot of action. Yeah. I mean, there is a lot to watch right now and a lot to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. I don't think, I mean, to our point, do you think that anybody knows that the parking rules have changed?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, if you and I walked down to Half Price Books right now and on the way we grabbed everybody we knew. No, sir.
If they did, like even yesterday, if they did, they don't know if it's real or not real. Did it pass? Did it not pass? Or what are we doing? Is this a gray area? Mm-hmm. How do we do this?
Yeah.
But there's no narrative about what has been resolved.
I mean, it's just huge.
Yeah.
I mean, in the state of Texas, that's just like, that's gigantic. Yeah.
Well, in our nation, right? We're the biggest city that has done that, I believe.
Yeah. And then, when you put it into the context of, so are you supportive of new rail? And, and then it's like, well, they're not even, maybe they're not sure whether or not the parking thing happened. So like, I mean, it's just, we've got to just like have these, as many conversations as we can because the city is changing so fast. There's so much action happening. And, ultimately, we want people to, whether or not they agree with what you think or anybody else thinks, ultimately, we want people to play a role, where it's like, just pick a side, get on board, get involved. Because, there's just a lot happening.
What's one thing that you would change to help the affordability cause? Like, what's one thing besides like code? Like what would you do? Like what's a
not code related?
Not code related. Like what's something you'd tackle or want to fix to kind of?
I mean, along these lines, like the educational component, like what kind of outreach can I do regularly to like get people to kind of just pay play a role or be interested. I think that would be one big one. I mean, wait, tell me your question again.
What if you could take away one of the bigger obstacles, notwithstanding code related issues, if you could just wipe away one of the big obstacles to really ushering in more affordability projects, like what would that be? If you could remove one obstacle.
Yeah. To remove an obstacle for affordability that's not code related. And it's not something, I mean, I guess, not code related to.
Could it be the cost of the box?
What's that?
That's cost of the box.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there is that, right? Mm-hmm. To even build a white box with lights and like AC.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Here in Austin is very different than doing it in, I don't know,
100%.
in Waxahachie where I grew up.
Sure.
Right. And how do you change our systems to really make it affordable? And there's ways to do that, but it's not necessarily efficient and easily doable without
you've got land
building
costs,
a team,
right? You've got hard costs of construction. You got land costs.
I mean, those are kind of problems that we face no matter what,
sure.
Land code or no land code, but
So as a developer, when you're looking at that equation, is it more participation from the local government in terms of subsidies to kind of overcome some of that?
That would be also a great, I mean, changing cost of goods is difficult in trades, especially, because of the reasons that we're talking about. The average mom and pop electrician, plumber that's living here is also having problems trying to afford living near Austin. And so those trades are going up, and, over COVID, so many of those mom and pop shops got gobbled up by bigger operations. Right. And so, that's an issue, but yeah, more sources for funding I think that would be a huge one.
Yeah.
I think, we've really started networking out, outside of the city to try to find other sources, so that we can lower the cost of construction. So kind of along these lines, how do you lower the cost of construction? You find subsidies, you find, outlets out there, low construction loans, from organizations, from grant money, whatever you can find out there to lower that cost.
Yeah.
So more of that would be great. More investment from the community, if you can, the ability to raise that money in the community, especially if you're doing like a supportive housing project. We have a project where we're partnering with another organization here in Austin, and the ability to raise that money through that organization to support the housing that we all want to create. I mean, those resources, that would be, more of those resources would be great.
Yeah.
More of them. Yeah.
It seems like design has a huge part of that too, right? It's because going back to some of the pushback you're saying you're getting from putting an affordability project in neighborhoods. I can imagine people are like, oh, I don't want that product in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
But from a design standpoint, if it's something that's more significant that adds to it, and if people are aware that that's possible, maybe that would. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you think of low income, and that, if that's the label you're going to put on affordability, then you think of, trashy yards and houses that are not kept up properly. I mean, you think about how that's going to affect maybe yours. But if an affordable project comes in and it's designed really nicely and it adds to the neighborhood, maybe that lowers people's resistance to it a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does. And I think for some people, I think that it has to do that for some people. Like, I think that, the project has to be more attractive. And again, this is when you get into the game of like, well, we've just got to create housing that, that really, that functions well on the interior, that is available. And, so I do think that there is kind of like there is a mentality that feels like it's needed, this appeal, design appeal to it. And I do think it gets difficult, balancing that with the basic and dire need of just creating the housing. But I don't know how you advertise that in advance. I don't know how you advertise that in advance, because really, those levers and mechanisms to create the affordable housing happen just with the basic, ability to do so within the land development code and within certain programs inside of the city of Austin. You don't even get to that point where it's like, oh, and we've got Odom designing it and we've got Jeremy building it. We don't really get to that point at all, in the discussion until way later.
Yeah.
So it's, I think if there's, I do see a willingness though, like we were talking about earlier, where somebody like Odom being involved in an affordable project saying, okay, I'll do whatever I can to make this happen.
Yeah.
I want to go the extra mile to make this work, because I understand how important it is to be a part of this project. And that's a big deal. So I think that the basic sentiment of we've got professionals, talented professionals, out there that are ready to push this thing to make it work.
Yeah.
Just know that. That's blanketed. Like, that's a support. Like, people want to be a part of these projects. They want to make them work. They're willing to make the sacrifices. They're willing to invest their talent.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're kind of getting to the end of time here.
Dang,
it's
Yeah,
fast.
I know.
But listen, you've got my mind racing, and I think we need to do this again.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty soon.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's a good platform, and
No,
I
it
think
really
there's several other things on the topic of what makes it work that I wanted to add, but we can do that next time.
Okay, so
because that would
make
be
a promise we'll do this again.
Done.
I've got
Done.
several areas I want to
Anytime.
dive into as well.
Done. Anytime. We'd love to do it again. Yeah, this is fun.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Michael, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Part one.
Yeah,
We'll-
part one. Yeah, that's
part
Next
two
one's
in a
going to be
second.
at Dawn's, right?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, mobile.
Awesome.